Yo, what's good, everybody? We are back with the Wave Report number 23, man. Subscribe to the channel, smash that like button. There's gonna be a short live today. We're gonna talk about the two main events from last night, and I'm gonna bring up a interview Eddie Hearn did on IFTV and talk a little bit about that as well. All right, but we'll get to that. Let me let a couple more people get into the room, and then go on from there. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. So look, I wasn't planning on talking about this. Sorry about that. All right. So I wasn't planning on talking about this. But someone had asked me on Twitter what I thought about it, and it's basically about Anthony Joshua. Before I just gonna bring this up, man. I'm gonna just say this, and then we're gonna move on. Somebody asked me what did I think about Anthony Joshua and him being in a room of darkness, and you know, I had seen it. Um, to be honest, my answer to that is the same answer I have with any other fighter. Whatever you choose to do in between your fights in your personal life, that's your business. Whoever you're dating, whoever whatever you like to do for fun, whatever you choose to do in your free time, that's your business. All right. So as far as AJ, I seen a clip of him like being outside somewhere in the woods, and he was in a cave with darkness and whatever, and somebody was recording him. Look, man, whatever AJ wants to do in his free time, that's his business. As long as it's not affecting a fight, an upcoming fight, or something like that, you can make an argument that his mental health, not being great or whatever, can affect his future fights. I think most people have been saying that his mental health has been off since the loss to Andy Ruiz. Whatever AJ wants to do, that's his business. But I'm going to be honest. When I seen the video, I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what AJ needs right now? AJ needs, and if you watch Dragon Ball Z, AJ needs to be in the room of spirit and time. If you know what I'm talking about, it's funny because it's just a room with nothing in the room, and all you can do is train. The gravity is like 10 times normal gravity, and you just sit in the room for a whole year. For one day, you get a whole year worth of training. That's what I thought about when I saw that video. So if AJ wants to go in a cave and be in pure darkness while someone's there with him recording him in the cave, that's his business, man. I really don't care what AJ is doing on his free time, man. It's kind of weird, but whatever he wants to do, man. I really don't care. But it is funny. It is funny. And the funniest part about it is the fact that somebody's recorded him like walking into this area and stuff like that. He's got to be at least worth like 50, 100 million. I don't know how much he's worth, but if that's what he wants to do, man, that's what he wants to do, man. I hope AJ is fine and in good spirits. And hopefully we can get him in the ring again, man. And if he is not gonna fight Deontay Wilder, at least get us a fight with one of these other top guys like Zhang and Hergovich or whoever, you know what I mean? And that's pretty much it. And that's how I feel about that. Shout out to the people that's coming in. What's up, E Class? What's up? I see you. What's good, El Chivo? What's happening? All right, so look, let's talk. Let's talk a little bit about the fights. Let's talk about Jack Catterall. He beats Jorge Linares. He goes the distance, go 12 rounds with Jorge Linares. All right, this fight was at 140. It was yesterday on. It was on dazn early in the afternoon. Okay, or early in the evening. All right. I was trying to get on live. I wanted to cover the fight live, but I just didn't get home on time, and I ended up watching it on my phone. The fight itself, it was okay fight, to be honest. I placed a bet on Jack Catterall last minute to win a decision. I just felt like, I know in the prediction I did a few days ago, I told you guys I wasn't too sure if it was going to be by a knockout or be by a decision, but at the end I picked him to win by decision, simply because I think when it comes to Jorge Linares, we know that he's a bit chinny. We know he's been stopped a lot of times. Out of 8 of those losses, before this fight, he was stopped 6 of them. But the thing is with Linares is he normally gets stopped by these guys that brings the pressure to him. He gets stopped by pressure fighters, aggressive punchers. You know what I mean? And I think that Jack Catterall, and I said this in a prediction video, Jorge is better when he's playing like he's playing chess. You know what I mean? And even if he's losing like he did last night, even though he lost to Devin Haney, those are chess matches. You know what I mean? You're not fighting guys that are really like high volume or big punchers or super aggressive fighters. And even though there was a moment in this fight where Jack Catterall did hurt him a couple of times, it wasn't enough. Jack Catterall is not a finisher, and he's a guy that's going to beat you on points. He's going to outbox you, and he's going to coast to the win. He's not going to take too many risks. He's not going to, have you hurt and try to dominate you. That's just not the way he fights. He's a very cautious fighter. He's a defensive-minded fighter. And even though he was clearly winning the fight, he coasted to the win. You know what I mean? He didn't turn it up a different level. And that's just the way he fights. And between him, Sandor Martin, and Richardson Hitchens, those 3 guys at 140 are the same. Not, I mean, stylistically similar, but the way their approach and the way that they fight, they're not going to turn it up a different gear. If whatever they're doing is working for them, they're going to stay disciplined. They're going to stick to the game plan. They're not going to change the way they're fighting, even if they're up on points. Hitchens had his fight with what's it called? Jose Cepeda. And he's winning the fight. He's outboxing Cepeda. Cepeda obviously needed, he had the power advantage, but he just didn't have the boxing ability to beat Richardson Hitchens. And Hitchens didn't turn it up a different gear. He was clearly winning, and he was fine with coasting to a decision because he wants to win. He's not going to have a lot of knockouts. The same thing with Sandor Martin. He's not going to turn up a different notch. He was clearly outboxing Mikey Garcia when they were fighting, but he didn't turn it up a different notch. He's not trying to stop him. He's trying to get the win. And when it comes to Jack Catterall, it really depends. A fight depends on what his opponent brings, and the thing with Jorge Linares at this stage, being 38 years old, coming off 3 losses, I mean, he's lost about, I don't know. I mean, out of his last 6, 7, 8 fights, he's probably lost like, 6 of them. You know what I mean? So Jorge Linares, even though he's pretty explosive, he's always had power. He's always was pretty fast and any, stuff like that. There was nothing he could do. He was getting outboxed, and there was nothing he could do. He landed some good shots. I mean, he's a good boxer, but he's past his prime, and on the same time, he doesn't want to get knocked out again. He got caught with a good shot in the 5th round. I think he got caught with another shot in a later half of the fight, but it just wasn't enough from Jack to put him away. And Jorge just didn't have enough to get the momentum back. You know what I mean? And that's that, and I hope, Jorge, I don't know if he's going to retire. I think at this point, 4 fights in a row that you lost, I don't know if he's going to retire. What I do think is going to happen is he's going to get on a card. He's going to pick up a win somewhere and probably retire. I don't think he's going to retire coming off of a loss or coming off of 4 losses. You know what I mean? I can see him doing the exhibition thing. That can be a possibility for him, but um, he's still good. He's still sharp. It's just, fighting at 140 now and just not being that much of a threat. I mean, he's not knocking out anyone that is top tier at this point. And then he's at the risk of where he can lose to some journeyman too. And I think he should retire simply because of that. You don't want to start getting beat by guys that you would beat. You know what I mean? He's already lost to a couple of guys that I think he probably should have won against. And in his prime, he probably would have, or at least closer to his prime, he probably would have won against. I think the last hurrah was really the Lomachenko fight. And then pretty much after that fight, he started looking noticeably different, a little bit past it. But at this point, like, I mean, unless you're just looking for a check, you don't want to just start taking L's from people that you would probably have beaten, a few years ago. You know what I mean? So I think he should retire, and just maybe do an exhibition thing, get some money there. But he's still sharp. He's still in shape. He looked physically, he looks good. It's just he's past it, and he's gonna take it. He's gonna, as long as they're either gonna put you in there as a stay busy fight for some of the top guys, or put you in there with some guys that's on the come up, the prospects. And they're gonna always say, "Well, I beat a former three division champ," but he's not at his best at this point. As far as Jack Catterall, I know Eddie has been saying for some time now that he's gonna try to set him up with the winner of Regis Prograis and Devin Haney. Now, when it comes to that fight, or one of those 2 fights, and also, Josh Taylor rematch is still up there, but I'll talk about that in a moment. This is what I mean about Jack Catterall. If he were to fight, I think stylistically, he's a bad matchup for Regis Prograis. You know what I mean? Because even though Prograis has power, he's a chess player, but I think he's a little bit more, how should I word it? I don't want to call him like a one-trick pony, because he's more than that. Yes, he has more to his game, but having the reach disadvantage and height disadvantage in pretty much all of your fights, but you fight so well on the outside, a good mover, a good lateral mover, a guy that is great at controlling distance, a guy that is patient and defensively good as a Jack Catterall will be an issue for Regis Prograis. It'll be very similar to the Zarilla fight. And if Jack can't get the fight with Josh Taylor, I can see Jack taking the fight with Regis Prograis. And he's called out Regis Prograis before. I can see if Regis gets through Devin Haney, I can see that fight happening, and I can see Regis Prograis struggling in that fight. You know what I mean? I think Regis struggles against guys, really good boxers that know how to control the distance. You know what I mean? Because then now Regis will have to force the action. He will have to force himself to get in. And I don't think Regis is that great at doing that. We saw in the last fight. And I think up to this point, the reason why Prograis looked so poorly in that fight, because we've never seen Prograis fight someone that was that good in staying out of his range. He has not fought a fighter that was that good at doing that until he fought Zarilla. So a guy like a Hitchens, or a guy like a Sandor Martin, or a guy like Jack Catterall, I think, would be issues for Prograde, especially the two southpaws. You know what I mean? Shout out to everyone that's here, man. What's up, Mark? What's up, Pepino? What's up, Gabriel Sanchez? What's good with you? On the other hand, Devin Haney matches up well with a lot of people because I think he's more of a mixed bag. You know, I mean, yes, he is a defensively responsible fighter, but he likes to let his hands go. You know what I mean? Um, I think with Devin Haney, I think he's good at controlling distance, obviously, and he has a phenomenal jab. But Devin likes to mix it up, and he likes to throw combinations, whereas like Jack Catterall doesn't. He doesn't throw many combinations. He's more like a sniper from the outside. You know, he's more of a counter puncher, and you know he's not throwing many combinations. You know what I mean? So I think we're Prograde. I think he matches up well with guys that are aggressive and volume punchers, and I think he matches up well with other chess players like himself because he can use that length to box and stay on the outside. He can fight that fight, or he can mix it up and fight you on the inside. I think a lot of people, even for the people that think Lomachenko lost the fight or won the fight against Devin Haney and he was robbed, I think a lot of people were surprised at the fact that Haney did well on the inside. I thought that was one of the key things that Haney would use to win that fight, and he actually showed it in that fight. All right. Um, you know, and then you also have Teofimo Lopez, who I don't think Tio is interested in a fight with Jack Catterall. I think Teofimo Lopez is more interested in fighting like the Ryan Garcias, the Tank Davises, and possibly a rematch with George Kambosos. All right. Let's talk Josh Taylor because Josh is someone that Catterall wants to rematch. I know Eddie had brought it up, and he basically said, like, look, I know Josh wants to fight at 147. So maybe, you know, being that there isn't a title on the line, maybe Josh is willing to meet him somewhere in the middle, all right, and do like a catchweight fight. You know, I don't know if Josh is still interested in the fight. I mean, they were supposed to rematch, not for all of the titles, but one of the titles that Josh still had. And Josh had he had an injury, and then Josh ended up going on and moving on to fight Teofimo Lopez, all right, which he lost. So um let's get the rematch, you know. But I do think it's time for Josh to move up. And if it's not at a catch weight, he shouldn't be coming back down to 140 for that fight. Not at this point. You know what I mean? Uh Try to make it at 147. If not, agree to some sort of catch weight. I guess I want to see the rematch simply because I do think Catterall won the fight. So for me, yes. And I think that is one fight that Josh can avenge. They'll give him some sort of closure. You know what I mean? If he can go in there and win again. I mean, to be honest, Josh would have a good shot at winning the rematch simply because he ended the fight stronger. But I think Jack picked up a lot of the early rounds. Plus, he scored a knockdown in that fight. So I don't know where Josh is at. You know, some people may even say, like, I've read this a lot from people that Josh is currently outside of his prime right now. You know, I mean, from going from that Jack Catterall fight to going to the Teofimo Lopez fight, a lot of people just believe that Josh is out of his prime. I don't necessarily believe that because, to be honest, even though Josh did great things at 140, becoming undisputed, he had one of the best recent undisputed for title runs out there. You know, I think him is up. He's up there. I think Usyk was up there, one of the best runs. You know, those are two. I can't remember. I don't want to go through all of the runs, but Josh was definitely one of the better ones. Plus, he won the tournament. You know what I mean? And what I will say is, Josh struggled in a lot of those fights. You know what I mean? He didn't dominate every single guy. I mean, he struggled against Victor Posto. He struggled with Regis Prograde. You know, he struggled early against uh Ramirez. You know what I mean? He struggled in a lot of fights, and I think that stylistically, those matchups was just bad for him. You know, and losing, having a Catterall fight, and almost losing that one. And then the Teofimo Lopez fight. No, I think he just fought two guys that was, able to do more against him. I think Polk still did the right thing against him, and he was outboxing him. I mean, Jack made adjustments in fights that I thought he was looking a little shaky early. Same thing with Prograis. So Josh Taylor, great fighter, but he struggled in a lot of fights. So I'm not gonna jump the gun and say that he's past his prime when he struggled in the fights that he won. I think the Josh that we got, maybe it's a time for a change. Maybe he should fight at 147. Maybe he should change coaches, you know what I mean? And learn a few tips and make some better adjustments in this fight. But, with the way he looked against Tio and Catterall, it seems like in those fights, especially in the Catterall fight, I'm sorry, especially in the Teofimo Lopez fight. The Teofimo Lopez fight was a clear L. You know what I mean? It was clear. Like, this guy was hurting you. He was outboxing. He was toying with you. The guy was just in a different class. It is what it is. And it's crazy because it's crazy that people ignore. What's up, King G? What's good? People ignore the styles so much. They ignore that. Because Teal just looked bad in his previous fight against Sandor Martin. He looked bad against George Kambosos. It really depends on the styles. It depends on the strategy you're using, whether or not mental, like where you at mentally, or you overlooking your opponent. I think people like to ignore those key things, and people just go into a fight and the guy takes an L and they're like, oh, this guy's past his prime already. He could be, but I'm not sure about that. I just think Tio stylistically was just a nightmare for him. And Tio's going to look bad. Tio looks awful in some of his fights. Nakatani, awful. You know what I mean? Sandor Martin, not good. George Kambosos, awful, terrible. But when he fought Loma, when he fought Josh Taylor, he looked great. He looked phenomenal. So I think people need to stop ignoring those key factors. All right. Josh has a lot to think about because whether you fight Catterall, which is another tough fight, do you want to go back to that, or do you want to secure your win over him? And do you want to cut down and wait to fight him? Is Josh willing to go to 140? I mean, not Josh. Is Catterall's willing to go up to 147 to fight him? I don't know. We just gotta wait and see. All right, but Josh gotta it's a lot on the line right now because 147 doesn't get any easier, And even though Spencer Crawford, they out the game, you got Boots there, you got Crowley there, you got this guy Giovani Santillan, who I'm about to speak on right now. And I might as well segue into that, man. I might as well segue to that fight. Yo, I don't want to even hype this up. I know I'm gonna sound like I'm hyping this up because I didn't see the fight, man. I was gonna jump on live, but I was so tired, man. I had a busy week. And I was so tired, man. I didn't want to go on live, being all out of it. But I watched the fight this morning. I was trying to wait until the fight came on. I watched the fight this morning, man. And I didn't know what happened. I watched the fight. I did not know the outcome. I didn't go to social media. I didn't look at no articles. I didn't look at no nothing. I woke up. I was still in bed. I'm going to tell you how my day went. I woke up. I grabbed my phone. I went to the dazn app and I selected the fight night replay. Santillan against Alexis Rocha. I'm watching the first round, bro. And I'm like, oh, mind you, I remember I did that prediction video. I always tell you, if I place a bet, I tell you, even if I'm wrong, I don't care. I went just like I did with Catterall and Linares yesterday. I went last minute, put a bet on Catterall to win on decision. Got it. Placed a bet last night on this kid Rocha to win a decision because I couldn't decide on a knockout or whatever. I said, you know what? Let me put it on decision, and he's a favorite. Let me get someone on a decision, and I just feel like this guy is gonna go the distance with him. I knew about the sparring sessions. I saw the weigh-in. I knew that, but I said, you know what? I don't want to ride on too much. And I knew it was a few of you guys that left comments that was like, yo, I think Santillan is a live dog, or I think Santillan was a few of y'all knew that. So I'm gonna give y'all props for that. Y'all watched the first round. I got out of my bed. I came out in my living room. I put it on TV because I saw the first round. I was like, holy shit. This guy, Alexis Rocha, is getting beat up bad early in the first round. I'm like, let me put this TV on. Yo, Santillan beat the shit out of Alexis Rocha. I mean, goddamn. I mean, and he was a pretty solid underdog. He beat that crap out of Alexis Rocha. I mean, damn. It made me like, I'm watching it every round. Alexis, from the opening round, Alexis Rocha could not get out of the way of those chopping left hands. They both southpaws. He could not get out of the way of those chopping left hands, man. Santillan was just walking him, and Santillan didn't barely took any damage. Barely. He's just beating the hell out of him. You know, and Rocha was doing what he had to do. Like, Rocha was trying to control distance, like use the jab and move, but he was fighting on his back foot the whole time. And one thing that I missed, and I was wrong on this, clearly wrong. In fact, I'm willing to sit here and tell you that this was one of the most shocking performances of the whole year. The whole year. This is one of the most shocking performance. I think I don't think I would say Roman Villa was one of those two, because but I wouldn't say that then, because I think I told you after the press conference, I was like, yo, this kid's kind of big, put some money down on Villa. But this one, I thought Alexis Rocha, like from the little bit of film study that I did on Santillan, and I saw his fight with Antonio DeMarco, who was a southpaw that I respected, and that was just 3 years ago. So I'm like, I seen that fight, and I told you, I was like, I seen that fight. I was like, he's solid, but I think Alexis Rocha should be able to deal with him. You know what I mean? I think whatever he can do, like even if it turns into a dogfight, this guy is not showing that. Even though he's aggressive, it didn't show that he had the power like that. Man, was I wrong? I think this is the most wrong I've been in all year on a prediction. This guy dominated him every single round. Alexis Rocha didn't have a chance. There was no moment in that fight that I felt like he was winning, that he was gaining momentum. He was fighting on his back foot. Even in a little bit that he was doing, throwing combinations to the body, you know what I mean? He was trying to fight back, but this guy was walking straight through him. He made him look like he had no power. He made him look like he couldn't box. He made him look like he couldn't fight in a dogfight. He made him look like a little boy. I mean, this gotta be one of the, and you know what? This is what boxing needs. This is what I love about boxing, because I don't believe those matchmakers felt that this guy was gonna win. You know, you have Golden Boy Promotions with one of their star fighters, right? They've been matching him up well. I said all this in a previous video. This is his third fight. When I'm talking about Alexis Rocha, they've been matching him up well with people. They've been keeping him busy. You know, yes, he lost to Rashidi Ellis, who was also with Golden Boy at that time. But, you know, they were still pushing Rocha. Rocha's been active. No, he's not fighting. He's fighting journeyman. Yes, he's not fighting top tier fighters. But they keeping him busy. You know, they making him sharp. He looks good. You know, they put him up against the I always call him the funny guy because I can't remember his name, man. What's the funny guy that he beat? I hate calling him a funny guy, but I can never remember his name. Blair Cobbs. I know if Blair Cobbs watching my video, he's gonna feel disrespectful because I always call him guy. He beat him up. So they put him in there with him, and you know, and I was like, all right, the win the win had some sort of age sort of well because uh he beat Maurice Hooker, and I was like, all right, Blair Cosby beat Hooker, so it ages well, but this guy made Alexis Rocha look like a basic fighter. Again, he couldn't get away from the chopping left hands. He and oh man, like Santillan looked like one of the most violent fighters I've seen in a while. I mean, I was thinking of guys like Marcos Maidana. I was thinking of, like straight brutal, come forward, throw combinations, like a real aggressive, high volume, puncher. You know what I mean? Like, no bullshit. There's no games being played. I'm coming. I'm throwing jabs. I'm throwing combos to the body. I'm throwing uppercuts. I'm punching you around the guard. I'm doing everything nonstop, like really brutal, like Ruslan Provodnikov type of performance. That's the only person. That's what I was thinking of. Ruslan Provodnikov type of performance. Brutal. No games. I'm coming forward and I'm trying to destroy you. And that's what he did to this guy. I loved it. Um, I cannot wait and to see him to fight whoever. They could put him up there with, because I feel like, to be honest, once you remove Spence and Crawford, right? They're out. Then you got like the Keith Thurmans. He's gonna fight Stanionis. You got Boots. I don't know what's happening with Boots because he's caught up in the Showtime stuff. You got Crowley, you got Boots, you got Barrios, you got all these guys that's with Showtime. We don't know what's going on with them, right? I don't know what's going on with the PBC and the Showtime fighters. So it's open season. There's no one that I feel that's at welterweight right now that's too good to fight anyone. It's open season, and being that Santillan just fought the best fighter on his resume and looked phenomenal. He looked better. He stopped guys that wasn't. He went to distance with fighters that wasn't on Alexis Rocha's level. But when it came to Rocha, he destroyed him. So I'm ready for anybody to fight anyone that's in that top 10. That includes David Avanesian. That includes Cody Crowley, Steve Spark, Mario Barrios, Keith Thurman, Stanionis, Boots, whoever wants smoke. I'm ready to see Santillan get in the ring with any of those boys. Anybody, because it's open season, and as far as I'm concerned, the two best fighters at 147 just fought. Everybody else, including Keith Thurman, I know he's a former champion, unified and all that. It's open season for anybody at this point. You know what I mean? Because if these guys move up and have their rematch and they fight at 54, and I'm talking about Spencer Crawford, those belts are going to get separated. You know what I mean? So it's open season, man. I'm willing to see any of these fights. What's up, AO? He says it doesn't matter how good a boxers are. It's hard to beat anyone whose tail is up and they are on fire. Like Joyce found out with Zong. Yeah. It is what it is, man. This is what I love about you. You need a good upset like that every once in a while. You got to give us that. You know what I mean? You got to give us a fight where we're like, yo, man, I'm on a prediction like, yeah, I seen this fight. And I brought up the Antonio DeMarco. It's funny I brought up that fight because I brought it up, but the commentators, or I'm sorry, Santillan said in his post-fight interview after the Antonio DeMarco fight, we changed it up. He was working, I believe his dad was his coach, and he switched his coaches and went to Robert Garcia, who's a boxing genius. We saw what he did with Marcos Maidana. He worked with Robert Garcia leading up to this fight. After the DeMarco fight, the same fight that I brought up in my prediction video where I said he looked okay. And look at him now. So congratulations to him. I love performances like that because now, it's funny because I just said I like Alexis Rocha. I think he's good, but I don't see him fighting and beating any of the top tier guys. But now that Santillan won that fight in the way that he won it, I'm like, okay, now I want to see this guy against the top tier guys. You know what I mean? Because he's clearly dangerous. Whereas Rocha was like, Rocha's going to keep winning until they put him in there with Boots, or if they had put him in there with Virgil Ortiz, or, one of these top tier guys. I thought Stanionis would take him. I just wasn't favoring him to win. I needed him to win against, like, can he even beat a David Avenesian? I don't know. All right. So, all right. This is going to be the last topic. This is going to be the last topic of the day. Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn did a video interview in IFL TV, and I put it. If you guys want to check it out, it's on the description of this video. Eddie Hearn did. Oh wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Ace, you hit me up. He says, "What up, Wave? Who are your top 5 welterweights that aren't Crawford, Spence, Boots, and Stanionis?" Top 5 welterweights right now. I would say Keith Thurman. I'm gonna put Santillan in the mix. If we're not including those guys, I'm gonna put them right up there, just like that. Just like that. I'm gonna put them up there. If we're not including those guys, I would probably say, it's tricky, man. I'm gonna say Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman. Santillan. Avenesian. Connor Ben. Keith Thurman. Avenesian, Connor Ben. That's 4, right? Or 5. I was thinking Crowley, but I'm stuck between him and Barrios right now. So I would say Keith Thurman, Connor Ben, Santillan, Avenesian. I'm still got Avenesian over Crowley. And I want to say it's between Coley, Crowley, and Barrios. All right. So there's like 5A and 5B. All right. That's for me. Virgil Ortiz, I purposely didn't include him because he's going up to 154. I purposely didn't. I would have said him right away. He's going to 54. If it's him, then I would have included him. But it's between Barrios and Crowley between that last spot. But I have David Avenesian still above them. All right. All right. So look, Eddie Hearn did an interview. Check out this interview. It's on IFL TV. It's Eddie. It's titled Eddie Hearn states he's parting ways with fighters that are not he's parting ways with fighters that don't want to take harder, tougher fights. So in the interview, he's basically talking about Showtime. He was talking about how their numbers on dazn were good compared to Showtime, right? And then he basically says, so Showtime was basically, the advisors and the managers wanted to keep giving these guys easy fights with the purse being high. And commercially, some of these guys, a lot of these fighters are not drawing the kind of money that would earn their purse, that would justify the purse that they were asking for. Now, the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because recently I did a video on Showtime, and it's talking about, it was like a long video of me just basically going on a rant about just the sport and the politics of the sport, and we talk about this. We always talk about this all of the time. I love the interview because I don't know if Eddie said, because he said he's going to be parting ways with fighters that purses are too high, but you want to just take easy fights. And he said, look, we know you're going to take your tune up here and there, but we can't take too many tune ups. You know what I mean? Um, so I love what Eddie said in that. I'm just hoping that he sticks to what he's saying, because at this point, a lot of people unsubscribed to the zone recently with the new subscription price. The subscription is very, very expensive. I mean, the zone at this point is the most expensive subscription of any streaming platform that I use. Any of them. I'm not even talking sports. The zone is the most expensive out of everything that I own. You know? Um, and they're paying, they're asking for pay-per-views as well. I love what Eddie said. I always thought that Top Rank was already like pretty stiff with the competition. Like they weren't really giving a lot of their fighters easy fights. I don't think any of them are perfect. I didn't think Showtime was perfect. I didn't think any of them was perfect. I thought all of them had their flaws. And I think sometimes some of the fights are cherry picked. But I thought Top Rank, especially Top Rank, was definitely tough schedules. And sometimes they're not tough schedules with people that were known. Sometimes they were tough schedules with like unknown fight. Like this guy, Shakur Stevenson, his next fight with De Los Santos is a tough fight, but not with a popular guy. You know what I mean? And if you lose this guy to many people, it's gonna look like a major upset. It's gonna be an upset anyway if he were to lose that fight. But a lot of people don't know who he is. But I like what Eddie said, because I think that's one thing that a lot of us have been saying for a while now that we want. Yo, and this is why the sport is failing, and this is why these networks are closing the doors on these fighters, because a lot of these fighters are too expensive, and the purses are going to continuously go up, because once a fighter gets paid $2 million, what they're going to want to the next fight, they're going to want 2 million again for a journeyman, or maybe a little less. But once they get 2 million for a decent fight, they're going to want 3 or 4 for a dangerous fight. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's just too much. Are they even making the money back? Are you filling the seats? Are the pay-per-view numbers great? A lot of these pay-per-views are not good. And he said commercial fighters. A lot of these fighters are not really that commercial. We have Ryan Garcia, we have Tank Davis, we got Anthony Joshua, we got there's a few people. You got Canelo, obviously Canelo. You don't have any major commercial names out there. Not many, but you have Tyson Fury, you got Wilder, you got some. But the problem is basically, let's say you are having tune-ups and you're leading up, and this is what happened to a lot of fighters. A lot of these fighters are taking tune-ups after tune-up, right? And they're getting paid well. Then they finally get in there with someone good. They do a pay-per-view, they lose a fight, and now the pay-per-views, it affects the fighter, because if the pay-per-view is not really a worthy pay-per-view, they're not going to pay, because people lost hope. And I think with Tank, one thing, the major criticism with Tank is commercial. So he's going to draw in the money no matter who he faces. He's one of those few guys that could fight whoever, and the money's going to come in. But that's still yet to be fully proven, because before the fight with Ryan, the Tank pay-per-views were good, but they were solid. They weren't crazy. And secondly, how do we know he's going to do well pay-per-view wise on his next fight, being that it's not going to include Ryan? You know what I mean? So the Ryan Garcia fight was perfect. They both were undefeated at the time. They both were commercially, they had names, social media, buzzing. Everybody knows who they are. So they did well commercially, but as far as like quality of fights, there are a lot of other fighters that are fighting better fights, more challenging fights. They might not get paid as much. They might not be as possible, power, popular. I'm sorry. They might not be as popular, but where do you go? Like if they're going to leave Showtime, how are you going to justify the purses if the pay-per-view numbers are not that good in the future? And this is what Eddie Hearn is saying. We need to make more difficult fights. Unless you're a commercial, super commercial fights, we need to make more difficult fights to justify your payment. And I like what he said. I just hope he stands by what he says, because we need better quality fights than the ones we're getting on a regular basis. Showtime had a great year. They had a great year. To me, they had the best year as far as consistent good fight. But, and there's a huge but, they charge us pay-per-view for almost all of them. Some of these fights they're just not pay-per-views. Spencer Crawford, yes, pay-per-view. Ryan and Tank, all right, pay-per-view, cool. But a lot of these other fights, Benavidez and Andre, that's not a pay-per-view. Thurman, Stanionis, that's a great card. It's not a pay-per-view. They're doing what they're doing on their way out. I just hope wherever new home they go, they can't keep doing that. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And if some of those fighters do go to DAZN, because it might go in different directions. I don't know if some of these fighters have an exclusive contract with Al Heyman. So they might have to go where Al Heyman goes. You know what I mean? I don't know how that's going to work with certain these fights. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know which one is signed directly with Showtime or other promoters underneath Showtime or with Al Heyman, whatever. But what I will say is that wherever they decide to go, I hope wherever they go, they change it. Put these guys in there with tough fights. Again, Wilder and Andy Ruiz should just be happening, man. They need to make it work. And some of these fights, they're way too they're just not having enough fights. Some of these guys, the layoffs, they're having like a year and a half layoff. It's just too many top tier fighters that were with the PBC that were just inactive, man. And that's damaging to your career, especially these guys that are not making the millions per fight. It's got to be damaging to be on the contract and just be sitting around waiting for a phone call. I mean, even some of the champions are like that too. Ridiculous. All right. But I like what Eddie said in that interview. I think it was I think he said what we need. All right. And that includes fighters on Matchroom, Golden Boy. All right. They just lost one of their top soldiers last night. They didn't lose him, but he just took an L. This is what happens. A lot of these fighters are not really that good because they're not fighting any real good fighters. And it's okay to take a loss, because when you take a lot of these guys that take losses, they bounce back on the next fight. And then people be like, yo, he's back. And they sell it as he's back. But there are other fighters like Adam Kownacki who lost and they just kept losing. Where, all right, now we got to be talking about retirement. You know what I mean? But there are other fighters that take a L and they bounce back. They come back stronger. You know what I mean? And they need to change the game. I know it's not going to be, people compare it to UFC a lot. It's not going to be like the UFC. It's an organization with one belt. It's not just MMA. It's a UFC. It's one organization with one title per division. So it'll never be like that. Okay. But what we need to do is do better at making the top fighters fight the other top fighters. And not this 4 or 5 year buildup thing is dead. It's dead. They did it with Spence and Crawford. They did it with Floyd and Pacquiao. They did it with some other fighters. They did it with Wilder. I mean, they're still doing it with Wilder and some of these other guys like a Joshua. They got to stop doing it. And that goes for everyone. I hope Eddie Hearn applies that pressure. It's talking about him parting ways. Apply that pressure to some of your top fighters. That same pressure, apply it to them. because we want to see the best fight the best. All right, but anyway, I'm out of here, man. That's it for the Wave Report today. Please subscribe to the channel and smash the like button, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.